Welcome back to Tutorial Tidbits and welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth St. Hilaire, and this week I have been playing with my new Matisse masks and stencil combo inspired by Matisse cutouts. This mask and stencil combo is a tab cut piece of mylar that opens up to pop out shapes, two sets of shapes, and then you're left with a stencil. So it's a 3-for-1, and layering, understanding how to layer these pieces is the key to making some fantastic gel prints with my shapes 1 and 2 of the Matisse series. So I'm working with shapes 1 and 2, and I'm doing some great layering. And so if you've got a few minutes, let's go check it out. Welcome back to the studio. So today I'm going to teach you how to work in layers with my new Matisse cutouts, stencils, and masks. I'm going to be using 2 opaque colors and 1 very dark color. And the way that you can tell whether the colors are opaque or transparent with golden fluid acrylics is that you're going to look for the visibility of those black hash marks through the paint swatch on the front of the container. And this is actual paint on the front of the container so that you can see the transparency of it. Golden pays people to sit and paint these swipes, not so that you can see the color, because that's clear from the container itself, but so that you can see how opaque or translucent they are. So Anthraquinone looks opaque, but it's probably because it's very dark and there's not a lot of contrast between the tick marks, because you can see the tick marks through there. Naples yellow is medium opaque. You can see the tick marks, but you can clearly see the paint over them. And teal is even more opaque because you can see the tick marks less than you can through the Naples. So there's varying levels of opaque and translucent, and that's all to be determined by the swatches on the front of the containers. And that's going to be really important in our layering, because my last layer is going to be this Anthraquinone blue. And if the yellow and the teal were translucent, they would get absorbed by the dark blue. But because they're opaque, that means the dark blue isn't going to go through them, but it'll rather show up around them. Okay, so I'm using my 9x11 gel plate. I am using my Matisse stencils and mask combo that are called shapes 2 and 3. So they are tab cut punch out shapes. They come out of here and like this, and then you also get the shape that comes out of the middle like this. So in one mask, you're getting, when you pop out the tabs, you're getting the stencil and 2 masks for every shape. So that's like getting 3-for-1. So the paper that I'm using is my all-time favorite rice paper, Yasutomo sketch paper pad. I like it because it pulls all the paint off the plate, and it's a very durable sheet. It's not thin like some of the rice papers you get online that are like tissue paper and they tear when you pull them off the sheet, off the plate. This is quite durable, and it has a nice smooth side. It is smooth with sizing, and that smooth side is the side you want to put down on the plate, and that is the side that's going to be facing up towards you in the pad. But when you feel it, you can tell the difference, that this is very smooth and the back side is very rough. There's no right or wrong in the paper, but the smooth side tends to pull more paint from the plate. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be working with 2 6-inch brayers, 1 for cool colors and 1 for warm colors. That way I don't have to worry about contaminating my color on my plate when I switch across the color wheel. So the first thing I'm going to do is put out the opaque teal, and I'm going to create a ghost print. Now a ghost print is what is left behind, paint that is trapped underneath a stencil or mask. And when you lift it, that paint that's left behind is the ghost print. So we want to go a little heavier with this layer of paint, knowing that some of it is going to stick to the back of the masks. And we're going to move a little bit quicker with this so that we have less of it drying and sticking back to the back of the mask. So that's a bit heavier of a layer. And I'm going to intersect some of my shapes here for fun. Run them off the edges. And I'm also going to incorporate the second set of mask shapes, which are the solids. And rather than just spreading them apart without allowing them to touch each other, it's really more visually interesting if they overlap. Now you want to work a little quickly here because the fluid acrylics are thin and they're going to dry rather quickly. And depending on your environment this summer, you may have to move faster than me. So I'm putting in, again, the solids and the open shapes, and I am letting them run off the edge of the page. And I'm just kind of organizing them in an interesting manner. And you can play with this over and over and over again to come up with interesting shape combinations. While I was practicing for this video, I created some other unique layered color combinations that I just wanted to share real quick. I've got pink, orange, and Titan green pale. I've got teal, orange, and Titan green pale. And then I've got chromium green, oxide, Naples yellow, and teal. So I've got that. And now I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to remove the paint in the negative spaces to leave the ghost print. Now, what you don't want to do is spend too much time or apply too much pressure because, again, we don't want tons of this paint adhering to the back of the mask pieces and then leaving no paint behind. So all we want to do is, press in here so that we get it out of the negative spaces. Don't linger and don't press too much. If it's not a perfect edge, it's actually kind of interesting. So I'm not going to worry about some paint being left behind there. Okay. So this is my cleanup sheet. I can make another layer with that later. And now I'm going to lift up the pieces and we should be leaving behind a decent amount of teal paint underneath. That is the goal. So we want to move quickly, use a little extra paint, and not let it dry and stick to the back of the masks. And these shapes do not need to be perfect. As a matter of fact, I like the more organic look of them sort of having extra paint, and this one actually shifted when I pulled it. But I love all that because it gives me that more painterly look. Okay, so here we have the first layer ghost print, and I'm just going to fan this a little bit to get it to dry because it's important that these layers are dry before you go to the next layer. But the beauty of fluid acrylics is that they dry very quickly. For example, as soon as I pulled this print, it was dry. So they dry very quickly because they're thin in viscosity. So, but we're just gonna do this to guarantee that they're dry because we don't want to roll the brayer over it if it's partially wet because we'll smear it. Okay, so the next layer is going to be that Naples yellow, which is again another opaque color. And this time I'm going to use the stencil portion of shapes number 3. So I'm going to lay that on top. Now you see that I'm not adding paint first. I'm adding shapes number 3 stencil over the top of the ghost print. And then I'm going to come back in here and lay these open shapes on top. So now we'll be intersecting those solids with some lines from the open shapes. So this is a combination of shapes number 2 and number 3 of the Matisse Stencils and Mask combo. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there. Let's put this one like this. And then, now that I've laid these down on top, so this is 2 layers. It's the base layer, the stencil that all the pieces were popped out of, and then I'm laying the open shape masks on top of that before I add any paint. And all of this, these 2 layers are on top of the teal ghost print on the bottom, okay? I know that it seems like it makes sense now, but when you try it on your own, it's going to be a little confusing. So you might want to write yourself a bulleted list of steps. I find that my students have better results that way when they make a little cheat sheet list of steps, okay? So now we have the two layers, the stencil with the holes and the masks with the opening on top of each other, and I'm going to apply that Naples yellow over the top. Yes, over the top. This is a little messy, but hopefully the results will be worth it. So I'm going to brayer this color, the Naples yellow, right into the openings. Now you have to be careful because the open space masks do not have full gel plate contact to keep them from sliding. The gel plate is sticky. It has a sticky surface, so most of the time when we do this, nothing slips. But this second layer is not completely sitting on the gel plate, so you want to be careful not to push too hard or allow them to slip. All right, so, and then the same deal, we're going to lift these up, and I'm going to grab the shapes first. I find that works better. The first time I did it, I tried to just pull the stencil from the outside and hope that it would lift everything, and it didn't work as well as I thought it would. So I think that's all of them. And then we're going to lift the stencil. And now we have another layer of interesting shapes. And the last layer we're going to use is going to be the Anthraquinone blue to pull the whole print. And because the Naples yellow and the teal are opaque and light, they will or should show up over this Anthraquinone blue. And it should be a dramatic contrast of colors and values. That's what I'm going for. Hopefully that's going to happen. So again, I'm going to fan this to dry. I find the colors that are opaque, they have a lot of white in them, and sometimes they require a little bit more drying time than something like green gold or manganese blue or nickel azo gold, those colors that are really translucent. They tend to dry a little quicker. There's something about the titanium white in the opaque colors that makes it dry a little slower, and those colors also tend to grab and stick onto the plate. They don't always all pull off. Something about the titanium white. So let's see, we do a little test. That's pretty good. Don't rush it though, because if you smear your yellow into your blue, you're really going to lose the whole effect. So at this point, you might want to walk away, go get a cup of tea or a cold drink. Don't wait too long, but make sure that it's dry. So I'm going to give it the finger test. I just need it to be dry enough that I can brayer over it and it's not going to smear. All right, so that ought to do it. And now for the final layer, the Anthraquinone blue. And this layer is going to be thin, but not super thin. So it's going to take some practice, but this layer we want to be thin, but we don't want it to be super thin, because if it's super thin, then the paper is going to stick to the gel plate. So kind of a nice, moderately thin layer. Because it is this layer, it is the moisture of this layer that causes the plate to release the two previous layers. So if you go too thin, it's not enough moisture to release the previous layers. So smooth side down on the paper, lining that up with the plate and applying some pressure. Now, here again, it's about timing and a little bit about practice. If it doesn't work the first time for you, try again. Because I have been playing and I've created probably 10 prints as I sorted out my layers and my colors for this video. So if you don't get exactly what you want, you have to try it again. Oh my goodness, this is going to be beautiful. So you don't want to leave it on there too long because the paper will stick to the plate, but you need to leave it on there long enough for the moisture to release. But here you can see this beautiful Matisse shape multi-layered print that started with teal and then went to Naples yellow, and then went to a high contrast, very dark Anthraquinone blue. Look at that. That is just beautiful. Thank you for hanging out in the studio with me. Thank you for gel printing. I hope you have a better understanding of layers and how to use my Matisse cutouts, stencil and mask combo to create some fantastically fun kind of retro prints. And I hope you will remember that the joy is in the process more than necessarily the final product. And to achieve these results, it's going to take some practice so you can have all kinds of joy along the way. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.